So, hi there, Tanya Taylor of Grow Your Wealth TV. And today I am going to be talking to you about 5 things that you need to think about to start building wealth. Quite often, people say to me, how can I build wealth? I can hardly pay my bills. How do I do that? And so, I wanted to talk about these 5 things because there are many ways that you can actually find money today to change your circumstances and change the way you spend, but you have to think about how you go about doing that. And hopefully, these 5 things will help you to do that. If you're new to my channel, please like and subscribe and share it with other folks that you think might benefit. As well, if you want to be notified of new content, just click the bell and you'll be notified every time I produce new content. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about, which is like so critical that a lot of people do not do, is to pay yourself first. Most people, what they do is they get their paycheck and they go through their paycheck and they pay all their bills and then they have nothing saved. And in the case of an emergency, they don't even have the first dollar. And studies have shown, or there's been recently talk in the news that most Americans don't even have $400 if they were to lose their job or if they had an emergency. So this guy, George Samuel Clason, he actually wrote the book, The Richest Man in Babylon. I highly recommend that book, actually. It has some really good perspective on how you can build wealth. Anyway, he talked about paying yourself first. And essentially the concept is pretty simple and self-explanatory, really. When you get your paycheck, you automatically pay yourself first. He recommends 10%. Someone can decide that it could be more, or someone who may not be able to start with 10% can start with a little less. Now, if you have this automatically taken out of your paycheck where you never have to see it, you never have to think about it, then it becomes so automatic that it's no longer a part of your budget, but it's just something that goes away, tucked away for saving so that you can have it in case there's an emergency, or have it so that you can start saving. Now, your next question might be, well, I already get all my paycheck. I already use it, and a lot of times I don't even have enough. So how do I even start that process? So I think some of these other tips that I will provide will help you to be able to do that. So the next thing that I would talk about is number 2, which is creating a budget. Most people do not have a budget. And because you don't have a budget, it's sort of like going somewhere, but you don't have an exact destination and you don't have a navigation system to get you there. So you're just sort of going around and you don't really know exactly what's going on. So in this case, you don't know your financial picture. So if you actually sit and itemize, and it could just be in a spreadsheet, or there are a lot of apps out there that you can use. Mint.com is a great place that you can do that. Personally, I prefer to use a spreadsheet because I can see everything on my spreadsheet. So you create a budget and you know exactly what your spending habits are. You have to truly be realistic about what your budget is and what you are spending. So you can't lie to yourself. Put everything down on the sheet. As a matter of fact, you can even try for a week. Just write everything down that you're spending. And you will start to realize that there is a lot of stuff that you spend on that you actually should not be spending on, or you could find an alternate way to make that to spend. For example, hopping on an Uber every time you need to go somewhere. Probably if you spent an extra 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and then you can take the bus instead of taking the Uber, or making these impulse purchases because you saw a sale. So if you identify that these are the things that you're doing, then you can stop. But a lot of time, if you don't have that written down, you're not going to realize that you're doing these things. And so you just keep spending and you keep seeing that you have no money, and so you cannot save. So I would say, try that out and see how that works and start to make it a habit in your life. The next thing is minimize your taxes. So many people miss out on this, and there are many things that you can do to minimize your taxes. And in the process of doing that, to also save. So the first thing I would say is, if you're not contributing to a retirement plan and your employer offers that, that's something that you should definitely start doing. Because let's say, for example, you make $60,000 and your employer offer a pension plan. And a lot of employers, they also match a piece of that pension plan. So if they're offering a 6% match, if you do not take advantage of that and take 6% out of your paycheck, then you're actually just walking away from cash on the table that you could have been saving for your retirement. Even even if your employer does not match, if you were to say make $60,000 and you take $5,000 out of that and put in your retirement plan, that is coming out pre-tax. And so at the end of the year, what you'll be paying taxes on is $55,000 instead of $60,000. So you're saving on taxes. Other ways that you can save on taxes: your employer probably offer a health savings account, and if they do, you can put away money in that. Then there's a flexible spending account. So if you have out-of-pocket medical expenses, which most people do, you can actually take money out of your paycheck pre-tax to pay towards those qualified medical expenses. And again, that's going to be reducing your taxes. Similarly, a lot of employers also offer pre-tax transportation. So if you take a metro or a subway, you can deduct those from your gross income, reducing your taxes. And they even offer pre-tax parking. So if you live in a city like New York where parking is so expensive, if you were driving and parking because of work, you can actually deduct that from your paycheck pre-tax. And so if you think about someone making $60,000, if they take advantage of all of these different deductions, they could be down to $50,000 a year, which is being taxed, as opposed to $60,000. And right there, because you're paying less in taxes, that's extra money that you will have, that you're not shelling out to someone, Uncle Sam, and also money that you will be saving, because if you're putting money away in your 401k plan, that's going to be accumulating over time. The next thing I want to talk about is being uncomfortable with debt. Number 4, like, debt is really not okay. There are many people who go out and they buy a car that they cannot afford, and they buy a new car instead of maybe a newer model car, where we all know that once you drive off the parking lot, like, your car depreciate at least 10%. So if you can afford a new car and it's not a big deal and you want a new car, fine. But a lot of people cannot afford a new car, and so they end up in these large loans, and they could have also purchased a car that was much less. Also, if you know that you cannot afford a vacation, do not take a vacation. Sort of plan for it. So it goes back to the budget. If you have a budget, you can plan for your vacation. You can plan for the car. You can plan for that night out with your girlfriends. A lot of people tend to eat out a lot. Is it necessary to eat out a lot? Yes, you don't want to deprive yourself of everything that's great, but you also want to balance it so that you have some savings, so that in an emergency, you are okay. And also so that you don't have this unsurmountable amount of debt. There is a study that was done that shows that 47% of Americans are carrying credit card debt, and up to 40% of Americans can only pay the minimum. That's really scary, because if you think about credit card rates, the average credit card rate now is like 18%. Credit card rates goes as high as 29%. I have heard, especially for the store credit card. And a lot of time people walk into store and they get asked, hey, do you want to get saved 10% or 15% today to open the credit card? And a lot of people will open that credit card. If you're going to open the credit card and you want to take advantage of that sale price, then you want to make sure that you pay off that bill within 30 days, because that way you did get the discount, but you're also not paying the interest. Because if you don't pay that bill within the 30 days, you now did not get a deal, because you're paying 24% or up to 29% on this item that you just purchased. And if you're spreading it over a number of months, you will have paid a lot of money for this one item that you thought you got a good deal on. Now, if you look at your credit card statement, it will actually tell you how long you have to pay off the credit card if you pay the minimum. It's kind of scary if you look at it and think about how long it's going to take you to pay this bill off. So always try to pay more than the minimum. I use my credit card. Actually, I use it a lot for points, because I travel a lot, and so I always try to get as much points as I can on it. So a lot of my bills, I actually use my credit card to pay, but I have my bank account set up so that every time I pay a bill on using my credit card, the money is automatically funneled to go pay my credit card off. So within that 30-day period, I never have that balance on my credit card. And when I do have to carry credit card debt, like, I actually have credit card debt now, I make sure that I do not pay the minimum, but also I always try to find 0% credit card. So in the times that I do carry credit card debt, I always make sure that I do a balance transfer and I keep it on a credit card that has 0% so that I'm not paying the interest rate. So it's like knowing those little techniques that you can use in order to not pay this exorbitant amount of interest. And then if you know, okay, I have a year that I need to pay off this credit card bill at 0%, then you're going to make the payment so that you get to that. So you get to that, get to pay it off, so you're not paying these large interest rate. So just another thing to think about. As long as you have good credit, you should be able to get a credit card, and then you should be able to at least try to find the ones with 0%. But with that being said, you have to be disciplined about it. You do not want to just go out and start opening credit cards and then accumulating the debt. It's just a matter of you want to use the system to your benefit, but you also don't want to incur a lot of debt going forward. So be very, very uncomfortable with debt and just try to pay it off and not just pay the minimum. And habit number 5 is to make a habit of investing. Again, I want to say if you like this content, please subscribe and share. And yeah, I will have new content weekly. So visit my channel to learn more about all of these different personal finance topics. So habit of investing. This is very big because this is how you're really going to start changing your financial picture. But again, those 4 things come straight in line with this as well. So there are many different investment vehicles that you can use to start investing, and you could start with very little. There's stocks, there's bonds, there's mutual funds, there's exchange traded funds, and there's index fund, among other things. But these are some of like the ones that you can readily invest in. And you can open a brokerage account, or you can use an app. And a mobile app is just on your phone, you use it, you probably don't get as much customer support or as much research as you would do with a brokerage account. With an app, you can also, if you're investing in stock, you can buy fractional shares, which basically mean instead of buying one share of a company, you could actually buy a half a share or a quarter of a share or however much you want. So if you think about a stock like, let's say Apple, which is over $200 or over $300 now, if you wanted to purchase $50 of Apple, you could use the app to do that. Whereas with a brokerage account, you probably are not able to do that, except for Fidelity. They now allow you to buy fractional shares as well. You can start investing with as little as $5. Now, is $5 going to do much? No, but what it's going to do is good. It's going to shift your mindset so that now instead of going out and doing these impulse spending, you may think about, well, I have my app. I could just go buy some shares of the Starbucks instead of buying a Starbucks coffee. And over time, you will shift from spending $5 investing to maybe $10 to $20, and you will keep increasing that. And again, if you apply some of these principles that I talk about, where you pay yourself first, you budget, you minimize your taxes, and you are uncomfortable with debt, then you will find yourself with more money that now your investing has gone from $5 a month to $100 a month or to $200 a month. And then again, if you're paying yourself first, you don't just want to have the money sitting in a bank account earning 0% interest. So while I would recommend that you do want to have some emergency fund in case something happens and you need to tap into your cash very quickly, you don't want to have thousands of dollars sitting there making no interest. So you want to find ways to invest it so that you can get a nice return. And this is where you'd want to do your research and start learning about the different types of assets that you want to invest in, instead of just having nothing. And over time, what you're going to see is that if you do nothing and you just sort of sit, sort of feel helpless that you're unable to change your life, you're going to look 10 years down the line and nothing has changed, and you'll probably still be in debt. But I think that if you really take these 5 principles or practices and start applying them and figuring out how you can find money within the limited resources that you currently have, that you will be able to find the money and you will be able to develop the habit, you will be able to change your mindset, and you will make an impact. So again, like, share, subscribe, and let's start creating financial freedom.